Welcome back to Ordinal Revolution. My name is Shizzy. On this channel, we talk about ordinals, and more ordinals. What's up, guys? How you guys doing today? We have a really good show for you guys today. We have an organization that's really doing amazing things for artists and everything with the prints and everything. We have Gamma.io. I'm so happy to have these guys on because what they represent to us as fans of this ordinal community, as being a part of this community who live it every single day like we do. We just really appreciate organizations like Gamma who are really helping out the starving artists and really giving people like Gadfly and so many others an opportunity that they wouldn't really have. And that's kind of what Bitcoin means. And now it's Bitcoin. It sells block space, and it sells block space to these amazing artists. And organization like Gamma is really giving them the opportunity. So I really want to get them on the show as soon as possible, and we have it for you guys. So without further ado, let me bring in my partner for this interview. And as always, Mr. Yagobi. What's up, sir?
What's up?
What's going on?
Not much, man. Got Gamma on today.
Yeah, buddy. Super excited for this one.
For sure. It's like kind of one of our bucket list items, right? To make sure we interview these entities that have been here for a minute and are doing great things in the space. You covered a lot of it. They are giving a platform to the artist. I always bring up the fact that higher quality digital art was a kind of like an objective to get those artists on Bitcoin, whether it's ordinals or actually on ordinals. And it seems like Gamma has kind of started to create this environment for them, right? There's other stuff like counterfeit culture and stuff like that also, but Gamma's the marketplace, right? So really love what they're doing. I have some questions for sure because I'm excited to talk about that, and I want to see what they have planned for the future.
Yeah, man, exactly. Like, we started looking into it when Prince came out, and we're like, oh wow, what's this? And then just so many amazing. I'm on there every day. I look for cool stuff. I buy something, like every other day. Actually, I gotta stop, but it's fun. It's great, and I feel like it's a great experience. I love their platform, and so let's bring them on. Today we have Brett. How you doing, Brett?
Hello there. How are you? Thanks for having me. A pleasure. I love the introduction. Can't wait to dig in. Love the hats as well, boys. They're very cool. Jealous of both of them. What is up? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us.
Much. Yeah, no, pleasure. I love getting on. I love talking ordinals. Obviously, representing Gamma is important to me as well. But I just love, like you said, representing artists and bringing for me, when ordinals became a thing, when we learned that you could store a file on Bitcoin, and obviously like block space is scarce and block space is important and block space can be expensive. I think that fine art or quality art, really makes sense. And if you look back through the annals of time, to use a bit of a cliche, art has been around forever, and it's always been a store of value. And as we know, Bitcoin's a store of value. And to quote somebody who I go back with in the Bitcoin space, and also from our beginnings as a stacks marketplace before we adapted and moved into ordinals, and layer one Bitcoin when it was possible, at Gamma, a guy called Patrick Stanley, he basically, to paraphrase, said, Bitcoin was hard money and now it's hard data. And I just love thinking about it like that, because that's really what it is now. We're able to put art, which is a store of value in itself, onto Bitcoin, which is a store of value, and and that's just a really beautiful way to look at it. And when I discuss that with artists, and they realize that it's essentially, we say preserve your digital legacy on Bitcoin at Gamma, and a great way of thinking of it is you're really eternalizing your art. Anything can happen in the physical world to someone's art. Hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully it's in a nice, secure place. But you've seen through history. The destruction of art is actually something which can really hurt the culture of the planet, really. And so you couldn't imagine that being able to be done on Bitcoin. That's the bet that we're making, is that now that you can put files on Bitcoin is kind of like, I like to kind of joke that it's like the cockroach, it will survive a war. So that means that all of this art, all of these files, all of this data doesn't just have to be art, as we know.
For sure.
We'll sort of, survive and sort of almost be we live on beyond us beyond the collectors, beyond the creators as well. And I think that will help a lot more like creators and collectors sleep at night, you know, knowing that their art and their files and whatnot are not like held in off-chain storage. And, you know, the kind of, I could keep rambling before you start asking questions. Yeah, it's a real pleasure. And I find it super inspiring. Like the last 9 months at work has gone by quicker than the first 18 months. So yeah, it's pretty wild.
Yep.
Yeah, man.
Pretty awesome.
And I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I see Bitcoin and the coin Bitcoin as two separate things. Bitcoin, the chain, now sells block space to artists. You know what I mean? Sells block space to communities and stuff like that. And the coin is just I mean, it's amazing. Don't get me wrong. It's everything that, you know, other people want. But from us, we want the block space. We want that immutable, undeniable like space on the block forever. And that's exactly, I think, what you just said. But yeah. So on this show, we love projects, we love all that stuff, but for us, it's really about the person. And so far, I think you're amazing. But why don't you give us your backstory and kind of lead us all the way up to maybe the first time you heard that magical word called Bitcoin?
Yeah, well, wow. So in terms of Bitcoin, you know, I'm sure we all maybe have that regret story of a buddy of ours telling us about it. You know, way back and thinking, you know, all of those things that you sort of explain to people now about why Bitcoin is so important. But I was sitting I live in Melbourne in Australia, and you know, there's this sort of like cool, you know, restauranty bar sort of pub in the city. And we were sitting there and he was telling me about Bitcoin and I just couldn't get my head around it. I was like, you can't hold it. You know, like, what are you talking about? What is this magical internet money that you're speaking of? This is 2015. So I think it was 500 Australian, which was probably about 300 US for a Bitcoin. And, you know, we had this big conversation about it. He obviously planted the seed, but I just couldn't get my head around it. And it took me till the end of 2016, early 2017 to sort of like take my first nibble, my first dabble at buying some Bitcoin. I think it was 7K Australian, so about 4-ish USD. So still relatively early. You know, if you could go back in time, you would have bought more, but you can't live like that. So that was my first introduction into really getting into it. And then since then, it's really just been like, again, to use a cliche, a bit of a rabbit hole. So I dived in, you know, was just exploring it, reading about it, you know, hanging out on Twitter, reading different forums, joining different sort of Discord servers. Really, like, it became more of a hobby than an investment, so to speak, to start with. I kind of regret that aspect of it, but I also don't, because it's just part of the journey. And then, yeah, you know, like, bought lots of shit coins, so to speak. You know, I don't actually love that term. Some are definitely shit coins, some are not. I'm all for experiments. You know, none of the other currencies would be around if it wasn't for Bitcoin. Some are great, some are not. You know, it's just like everything in life. And yeah, you know, like, kept buying little bits of Bitcoin, and kept learning and learning and learning. I was actually a primary school teacher before I started working full time in the space. So I was a primary school teacher, which is, I think you call it elementary in the States.
Mm-hmm.
I was teaching in grade 5, 6, which is like 11 and 12-year-olds. And when we were sort of like heavy in I suppose the pandemic, so to speak, we had relatively heavy lockdowns in Melbourne, and so I was online a lot more, obviously teaching from home, which allowed me to spend a lot more time online, you know, feeding my crypto blockchain Bitcoin habit. And and so, like, learning and really listening to podcasts and just networking. And then in early 2021, I sort of like really, I guess, you know, we were on lockdown then, dived into the kind of the world of NFTs as well, because one of the reasons why I loved it back then was, and again, sort of, it's a bit of a gateway drug into obviously like why I just love ordinals, but was growing up, well, being a primary school teacher and also just through various sporting ventures and whatnot in my, you know, childhood, teenage years, etc. I obviously like had a really deep respect for how important community was, and obviously community in school, like a school is a community, the local network is a community, there's like classrooms, a mini community. So community was big in my life. And NFTs were really interesting to me because it sort of brought blockchain and community, and then also art. And my mum, you know, she's not, well, actually, I think she's an artist. She doesn't create a lot of art now. She did a lot when she was younger, but we grew up with the arts being really important in our family as well. So I sort of had this beautiful melting pot of art, and art is culture, community and blockchain, kind of meeting in this point that was NFTs. And NFTs obviously still exist now. Fast forward a little bit, I ended up becoming project lead, helping out. I still actually have this project, and we're sort of like moving to Ordinals as well, but on Stacks. And Stacks is where Gamma started. So Gamma started as a marketplace / platform launchpad called STX NFT. So Stacks NFT was sort of the premier Stacks marketplace. And Stacks is essentially, we can move through it pretty quickly, as close as I thought we were ever going to get to NFTs on Bitcoin. It's not on Bitcoin, but secured by Bitcoin if you read into it, and essentially acts like a scaling layer L2, if you like, for Bitcoin. And so obviously then when Ordinals became a thing, so I ended up on my own with the project, and then I got to know the team at Gamma, and then long story short, ended up getting a full-time gig there because I got back to school 2022. 2020, what year are we? 2023. Yeah, start of 2022. And I just thought, I can't do this. We just had 2 years of lockdown. I've been working from home. My head was not in the game to go back to school. My head was in I want to work in Web3. I want to work at Gamma maybe. I had all these ideas. I had my own project. I was very inspired, and it's not like that I didn't love teaching the kids, but there's a lot of other reasons why I just thought I can't go back to kind of working within the confines of four walls, so to speak.
Yeah.
Working for someone else. I really wanted to dive into this space. So I've been working for 10 years. So I'd accrued in Australia. After 10 years, you get long service leave. So I took some long service leave, which is, some paid leave. And I needed to figure out what I wanted to do. I had really good conversations with the founder and co-founder at Gamma, who had, we were just rebranding to Gamma at that point because we knew we had much grander horizons. We sort of didn't want to be like Stacks NFT, which was kind of like our founder was like, what you see is what you get. It's like the name is on the can. We knew that we obviously wanted to build out the digital space on Bitcoin, and who knew that Ordinals were going to come up that quickly? So it was really quite prescient. Anyhow, luckily through discussions and, I got quite close to them. I was helping them out in various ways. They really loved what I was doing, and I've been sort of heavily involved across various communities on Stacks at that stage. I got offered a full-time job, and so that was, brilliant. So my gamble, so to speak, paid off. So I took the rest of the year of leave without pay, and then obviously had, resigned from teaching. But have been, again, fast forward 18 months, here I am today. But then Ordinals, it's funny, Casey inscribed the first Ordinal December 17 last year. Obviously, not a lot of us found out about it until January, and then February it all really kicked off. I think it was, so we rebranded to Gamma, by the way, back March last year, but I think it was February. God, time's gone so quickly, where we launched our Ordinals Mint and Inscription service. And then I think March was when we, I've got to go back. It'll be March, April. Don't quote me on the dates. This year's been a blur. Was when we, started, opened our, fully trustless, audited secondary marketplace, and then sort of grew our platform from there, all on Bitcoin. So, we became, our primary product, our primary offering, our main focus as a company, was Ordinals, because obviously we wanted to build out the economy on Bitcoin. And, Ordinals is just such an amazing way to do that. We still have our Stacks offering, and, we haven't, but all of that works really well, and is ticking along in our main innovation and main focus, and et cetera is on Bitcoin. And I guess here we are today. So that's a bit of a really long story short of how I got from teaching into the space, into my job, and speaking to people like yourselves today.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
very interesting.
Yeah, we hear a unique story every time, and yours is for sure unique, coming from the teaching world, which is really cool, having that experience and kind of leads into being able to gather community and kind of make sense with your role. So you were on Gamma was mainly focused on Stacks before. Can you talk about like the Stacks ecosystem now and how it's changed from once Ordinal started? Because it seems like there's been a mass migration from Stacks, but I don't know because Shizzy and I never really messed with Stacks too much.
Yeah.
What did that change once Ordinal started, and what does it look
I
like
think
now?
Stacks is definitely a developing ecosystem still. It's still quite small. I think the beauty of Stacks is companies like Gamma, Xverse, Hero, who have now, I guess, rebranded to Leather in terms of the wallets. We
Alex
all, NeoSwap, there's other companies, Alex, who are doing a lot with BRC20s. We all started on Stacks, and because we were all essentially building on top of or with or next to, however you want to describe it, it's each their own how they want to describe it, on Bitcoin. We're all very Bitcoin minded, and we had a lot of talented engineers who really understood and really got into it because they loved Bitcoin so much that all of those companies were able to really like expand their horizons. So I don't think any of them have forgotten their roots. And I think like Stacks has still got a lot of potential. And I think that, there's some really interesting things happening, bubbling away in terms of like core development there with SBTC and providing like a trustless or almost entirely trustless, Bitcoin peg in, peg out, rather than having like these centralized kind of things like wrap BTC and whatnot. There's some really interesting stuff happening there. And I think that could be fascinating moving forward. Obviously, none of this is financial advice. I'm not saying go and buy Stacks, but what I'm saying is that they're really talented builders there. And, even like Trevor Owens, he started, he's been around everywhere. But he started on Stacks as well. He's a big proponent of it. He was an early investor in Stacks, NFT, and Gamma. So, everyone had the talent to kind of, I hesitate to use the word pivot, but I guess kind of expand or build directly into Bitcoin on L1 straight away. So I think that's like a feather in the cap, really. Look, there's still a lot bubbling away there. There's been big projects like Megapunk, who you might have heard of, who released Megapunk's, quite early. I'm happy to talk about my project after my little side project. We've just rebranded as the Pandemonium, but my team built out ordigallery.com, which is a free virtual gallery for your ordinals. We're about to release something which will be an ordinals mint that'll give you a premium gallery and whatnot. But here to talk about Gamma, I can mention that for fun at the end. But so there's a lot of really talented builders. There's a team called The Guests who have like an overarching brand called Procrastinate Pixels, who are brilliant builders who are doing and releasing some amazing stuff, onto Bitcoin soon. So I think what you find with what is cool about Stacks is that all of these people were kind of there because they kind of thought, well, we weren't ever sure that ordinals or this sort of thing was ever going to be possible. So, it's amazing that it is. But what it did show was that all of these people were sort of like Bitcoin first. They weren't maxis, but they were Bitcoin first. And they were Bitcoin builders, and they were able to kind of move into Bitcoin really fluently and effectively. And I think that's what's really cool. So I think that you find really a really strong network of people who really loved Bitcoin, but also loved experimentation. So you kind of get that nice mix coming out of that ecosystem, if you like. I think that's probably like a nice way to summarize it.
Gotcha. Yeah, and it's probably going to be very, very beneficial for all of the developers that dabbled in both, because it'll benefit Stacks in the future to be that premium L2 solution or sidechain, like you said, whatever you want to call it, to be able to scale. Because I think at the end of the day, it was probably beneficial that they were working on Stacks the whole time from a couple years back, because they didn't think that it was possible to build on L1. Whether it's a meta protocol, you're still interacting with the the verification right there. But the way that every other blockchain ecosystem has worked is it's always build up the L1 first, and then the L2 solution comes. But the fact that Stacks was built 2 years ago, it's kind of already kind of ready. And then now Ordinals is like can establish itself, and then that will be a simple transition, it seems like.
Yeah, I think that's a really lovely summary. I think it remains to be seen. I think that there's definitely going to be an L2 race. I know that like people can get technical and say Stacks isn't specifically an L2, but if we just think, I like to think of rather than using the phrasing also, I like to think of layers, and I think it's a really nice layer. And I think there's going to be this sort of like race of the layers eventually, because as we all know, Bitcoin block space is scarce, and it's so important, and it's going to become, and it is, some days like today, super expensive. So there are going to be your Staxes and trustless computer and RSK and
roll-ups,
different, etc., that are going to have to, and it's a bit of a race, and we'll see what happens, because there are going to be days like today where for your average person, perhaps it's not achievable to be on L1. So I think that's super healthy, and I think what that does is it drives innovation. And if we've seen anything this year, is it's Ordinals has driven innovation
100%
faster in 9 months than we saw in 10 years.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, like how tough of a transition or easy of a transition was it for Gamma to go from Stacks to Ordinals back in February? Was it a hard transition, or was it just like, did they really hit the ground running?
We have an amazing engineering team. I'm so bullish on them. I've been working at Gamma for 18 months, and I finally got to fly to the States just a few weeks ago. I'm back now, obviously,
nice.
To meet the team in person. We had an amazing team offsite. I got to be in the same room as the devs. We obviously we're a remote company, so we, have been working super effectively nonetheless. But our engineers were so talented. And like I said, all of those companies like Xverse, Leather, Alex, us. I think I wouldn't say anything's easy in the space. Building on Bitcoin has its challenges, and that's a good thing, because it's so secure. And you want to do things that don't disturb the base layer, and that you don't need to change things. You need to adapt to all of these, I guess. I don't want to use the word restrictions, but I guess things that are in place that are there for a reason, and that's why Bitcoin is so secure. So I think our engineering team did a brilliant job, and from I guess the mints that we're able to provide, and the inscription service, and the prints product, and innovating trustless Dutch options that we piloted and launched with Bitcoin Magazine. Like they've done a brilliant job. I'm in awe of them, and so I don't want to say it was easy, because they'll be like, man, it's not easy. We spent ages deving, but they've done it so well.
From the outside looking in, it looked easy, right? So you're saying from your perspective,
exactly,
it was like, wow.
Like that. We've thrown them so many challenges. I work on the operations side, obviously on the community side and the growth side. And like you said, coming from an education sense, like educating, providing content, being out there in the community, being sort of like very public facing, onboarding artists, and working with the community, providing support, along with, our head of support and whatnot. So from the outside looking in, it's definitely seemed easy. I wouldn't say that anything's easy, but I think that they've been, super. I don't want to use the word talented. Super efficient, and just super able to adapt and learn and implement. Just like ship, just like maniacs.
Yeah, nice, awesome.
Yeah, which is so cool. It's cool to be involved with.
And so the next question I have for you is, I feel like it's about, first, where did the idea of prints come from? Because I really want to get into that. And because from being transparent, I didn't use Gamma very much. I heard about Gamma through the Bitcoin Wells. I think they launched their collection
they launched
there.
with us.
Yeah. And so, but after that, I just kind of didn't really mess with it. But when prints came out, that really caught a non-user like me to start using Gamma, and I've bought in several prints on there. So my question is, like, where did that idea come from? And do you feel like that was a turning point for Gamma to get more of the Ordinal market share?
Yeah, good questions. I think that there's a few things. So like you said, Bitcoin Whales launched with us. That was actually a really good stress test for us. We were able to really smooth out all of our kind of like inscription and minting kind of services, because a big part of what we did and what we wanted to be from the start was for independent artists, big projects like Bitcoin Whales. We work very closely with On-Chain Monkey when they went live, to provide a great place for launching and for getting people onto Bitcoin and getting, from small artists to big artists to projects, launched. And I guess we've always been, and from the start, even back before we were on Ordinals, very focused on art and supporting artists and being very creative first. So, we honored creative royalties from the start. We had a very art focused kind of UI and UX, which is now just, we've had a new designer on board all year. It's, you can tell when you get onto Gamma that it is like an art-based platform. But when you're a startup and when you're competing with, some big boys, you really need to sort of like laser focus, and you need to think, what are our strengths? Where do we think, and we can circle back to how we think, how important block space is and art is, that store of value, et cetera, sort of planted the seed at the start of our discussion. Where do we think our strengths lie? Where do we think the market is going to end up? Where do we think the market might, mature into? And also, you can't sort of, do everything and be a master of none. We wanted to really find an identity, and, people could see from the trustless Dutch auctions that we innovated with Bitcoin Magazine that we were very focused on art and being creative first and bringing this tooling to creators. But when we came up with the idea for prints, we obviously, and we've got more in the pipeline, really establishing ourselves as the place for art on Bitcoin, being the premier platform for art on Bitcoin. And, every company in the space, but in, globally, it doesn't matter if you're in Web3 or whatever, you want to have an identity. And when you think Nike, your brain goes somewhere. When you think Amazon, your brain goes somewhere. When you think Google, when you think Apple, they have an identity and you know what you're going to get. And so when when people think Gamma, I'm going to think art on Bitcoin. And so that, was a really big driver with the prints product. We wanted to become a place where you knew you could come and find quality art from, serious artists. And, that's what the prints product produced. We launched with 60 creators. We an amazing sort of curated list of people we invited. We obviously wanted to, and one thing which was really important was to support creators who had been with us from the start on Stacks onto Bitcoin as well. Some had already, but others hadn't. So we wanted to sort of like bring them on our journey because they were there with us from the start, and we obviously wanted to support them. So they were, they all got invited to be part of it as well. But then we obviously had, your Sir Gadflies, et cetera, who'd already, Lemon Haze, there's so many who were already, doing quality things on Bitcoin. They're invited, some external, creators, from ETH who are doing some amazing things, to really launch this product. And we called it prints. Obviously, we know they're like essentially recursive editions, but the beautiful thing about prints is it was a really nice, in this space, as you would know, and, this really like tickles me as a teacher. It's all about the verbiage, the wording that we use. I think that's why Casey was so passionate, and I agree with him about words like ordinals and inscribing and digital artifact and things, because that makes a lot of sense to people. It's kind of like when Reddit did their drop, they called them digital collectibles. And I think when we use language that makes sense to people, it just kind of like unlocks doors. When I explain it to people outside of the space, prints make sense. There's like artists have their painting or their original artwork, and that's like the one of one that we know, that we just the terminology that we use in this space. And then they have their prints, and what prints allows is you to collect artists and their work at a much more like affordable or a better entry point. And so using recursive technology on Bitcoin, and that's why recursion, this is just one use of recursion. Using recursion is so cool because in 2 lines of code, so a tiny piece of data like 1 or 2 kilobytes, we could create these prints of an original, because the original still exists. All of the creators inscribed a high res, bigger files, so they could have like really nice high quality, really not having to like compress it right down and kill any of the quality that we want to see from, particularly from fine art. Obviously, like Bitcoin whales and that is still art, but pixel art's a lot easier to keep smaller. You know, like Megapunks is a lot easier to keep smaller. You know, Bitcoin Frogs, all of these really cool projects. It's a lot easier to keep pixel art smaller. But when you have a fine artist, when you have someone like Sir Gadfly or Grimm or Twick or all of these amazing, you know, Arno Cast, I could name, you know, all of them, who are launching work with us, their work typically starts a lot bigger. And if you crush it when it comes to compression, it does kill the quality. And so what it does is, yes, it's a bit more expensive to inscribe the OG file, but it's like the oil painting that takes a lot longer in real life. And then you just get these prints that obviously, you know, you can do from scanning and printing. And so that was a really cool thing. We had these original files. So a lot of the creators can do what they like with it. They can just hold it for provenance, or they can sell their one of one because they might value that higher. There's so many different things they can do with their originals, and then collectors like you and I, you know, I just pointed the wrong way. So you guys and I was like, you and I can collect these artworks, and we really encourage them to price them affordably, to really increase their collector base, you know. And what I think that does is a beautiful thing, because for independent artists, it is a lot harder to develop community naturally than it is for a Bitcoin Whales or a Megapunks or a Bitcoin Frogs or an On-Chain Monkey, et cetera, because it's harder to sort of like, you know, keep marketing yourself and be on Twitter and be on Spaces and whatever when you're just potentially one person, when you just want to be spending your time creating. And so what Prince allows was get their art into so many people's hands, and then, you know, then they might put out one of ones or other collections that perhaps are priced a little bit higher, and then you develop community that way. So there's just so many beautiful things about it. And then you know, they became part of our, you know, the first kind of wave of our Gamma Partner program, and we've opened that up as an application process, and we've had over 200 applicants, you know, to so far to, you know, come in, which will, you know, we're going to drip feed some in every month. You know, we've got an in-house curator and a few other people who are going to be involved in selecting who comes in next. And then you know, their applications doesn't mean if they didn't get in next month that they're rejected. You know, they'll roll into the next month, and if they want to update their application, they can. And, you know, do we really want to build this sort of like community of creators? Because I think the beautiful thing about this is creators can then collab, they can collect from each other. You know, that's the way to really, you know, we've got them connected up in a private chat on our in our Discord server. You know, people can join the Gamma server just to come and meet them anyway, because obviously we've got like our open channels. But really creating community, because at the heart of Web3, you know, at the heart of Ordinals, at the heart of Bitcoin, community is key. You know, none of it works without community and sort of like consensus on a thing and being able to work together and build together. And, you know, that sort of like really drove that product. And we've got, you know, so another really important thing was we launched it without secondary listings open for prints, because we wanted it to be much more about collecting to start with. And
I love that.
Secondary listings are coming because naturally they need to, and they should. And, you know, the open editions are going to be able to be closed, and there's going to be a lot more tooling that's going to be that's being built and almost ready for our, you know, Prince artists, our Gamma Partner artists. But yeah, it was just a nice way of people collecting to collect and to get beautiful art in their wallets, and you know, to be able to have almost, you know, a digital gallery, a digital kind of collection that they're proud of. And then, you know, the trading and whatnot can come in later. But it was really nice. It was just kind of like pivoting that sort of like usual buying process for people. So we saw it was cool. We saw some people just buying artists that they liked. We saw some people buying, you know, perhaps like some of the smaller limited sets. So it was just, but it was much more about buying and collecting and supporting to start with. And it was just like getting that mindset of being collectors and buying art because that you like to buy art first.
I'm actually so afraid of secondary marketplace, because I love all the art that I have, all the prints that I have, and I don't want to see how much they're going for. You know what I mean? No. Like I don't want to get tempted. You know, so I kind of like that you guys did that. So yeah, I appreciate it.
And you know, because the last thing we wanted to see was an artist starting to be undercut because people were buying to flip. It was just changing the mindset, you know. And again, with that real art focused, creative focused mindset first. And again, that's sort of like, I like to refer to Gamma as a platform rather than a marketplace, even though we have the marketplace functionality, because I think when you think marketplace, you think flipping. And I think that, well, that's where a lot of people's minds go. And trading is healthy, for sure. You know, you're going to have flippers to medium-term holders to kind of long-term holders. You might have someone who sort of likes to dabble in all three, like myself and you, potentially you guys. But yeah, I think that that's just something that we really wanted to kind of like focus on first. And also, obviously, all of the tooling that we've built out in terms of being able to, you know, have a mint process whereby, you know, they're inscribed upon minting. So when you go on mint, it's inscribed directly to your wallet, you know, and for creators to be able to trustlessly auction off their, you know, their pieces using the Dutch format, because that's the way to trustlessly do it on Bitcoin, you know, where the previous PSBTs, if they don't get fulfilled at that price, you know, invalidate on chain before the next price point kicks in. And so all of the tooling and all the things that we build are, you know, obviously very intentional. And again, either entirely trustless or, you know, as trust minimized as possibly to sort of stick with that Bitcoin ethos.
Yeah. Well, speaking of like trust, how do you guys like vet your artists? Like, how do you know that it's coming from the person who actually did this and not from a scammer and stuff like that? I'm really curious about that.
Yeah, it's a good question. And that's why we have you know, it was a curated invitational thing only with, for prints and for, you know, we have a team that's on that. You know, we've got a couple of really skillful people on that. We've got an in-house curator. We have like certain processes, like for example, you know, this application process, you know, it's pretty hefty to apply. And so I think sometimes when you create friction, the so-called scammers, they don't want friction. They want to be able to kind of like get in and get out.
They want it easy.
Yeah. And if you make it hard, you do sort of tend to scare them off. And so, yeah, like there's a number of ways in which we do it. Obviously, you know, have checks and, you know, we have a team that is sort of on it and looks on other marketplaces and makes sure, and we, you know, always ensure that we sort of like, if we need to, that we seek more information, or if someone's not advocated for, if we haven't been introduced to, you know, there's so many ways, you know, there's no like one magic bullet. It would be great if there was, but yeah, it is something that we take very seriously because again, user safety is so important to us. You know, one thing which you know, people can see because publicly, you know, we don't have, you can't just apply to have a collection on Gamma through the site. Like you have to contact us and provide information, and then we'll ask questions.
Awesome.
And, you know, there's lots of ways in which we do it, because even, you know, for example, for a creator to add inscriptions to their collection, because as you know, with collections on Bitcoin, depending, you know, obviously with parent-child, it's slightly different, but they're just added manually because it's like having like a manifest of like, these belong to a collection. But even for a creator, even creators that we know and trust, they have to send us their inscription numbers so we can like check them before we then add them to the collection for them. You know, it's not just like open slather, because we want to ensure that when somebody goes to the market and they see something in a collection, they know it belongs to that collection. And so, you know, that even though that takes us more time, it's really important to us because, again, like Bitcoin, you don't want to just trust, you want to verify. And we want to make sure that our users are safe. And also, you know, it shows our, you know, we've had only positive responses from creators that we do that, because they know that we care, and then they know that they're on, you know, launching their work and putting their platform on a work that cares about them and then cares about the end user.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was genius to go the Prince route, because it really did kind of stamp that identity for the platform. And theoretically, the way that it works is it matches up perfectly with like the real life artist's prints, right? The one of one, and then you can just use recursion to call back, and it like makes sense in the mind of people like us, because we know how recursion works and stuff. But I think, you know, it's a good way to onboard more and more artists, and I really love what you guys are doing there. It made me a user of Gamma, which I wasn't a user of before. Yeah, so really love it. So you said that secondary is something that is coming. Do you have kind of like a timeline on what that looks like, or are you guys still just trying to fill out what the
No, so we're, you know, again, so when we're on that team offsite in Oregon, we you know, I don't want to like put pressure on the devs. I'd like to think it'll be the end of month, but you know, no pressure. Like again, everything that we do, and everything that we build, like I said, is very intentional. We want it to be perfect. We don't sort of just like ship to ship. You know, you would have seen even like with the Prince product, we could have gone live with it a lot earlier. But you know, from the immersive experience to like how simple it is, it's like 2 clicks. You don't have to sort of do a bunch of things. You know, we want it to be the best kind of UI and UX possible. And so it's going to be the same with how we go live with, you know, the ability for listings and for the creator to have a lot of say in terms of like what, you know, how that might look like for them and their collections, and if they're shutting off their, you know, open eds and whatnot. So yeah, I've seen how it's going to look, and you know, I think it's going to. Wow. I think people are going to really like it, and again, it's going to really fit what we've been doing, because you know, when you like all companies, sort of like I said, how we establishing ourselves. I'm glad that you said it. You know, it's really given Gamma an identity, and you need to stick to that, and you got to honor that. And, you know, I think it's really obvious from the outside for any company, you know, in Web3 or whatever, if a company or a website, or, you know, even when you walk into a store, you know, if you walk into a physical store down the street to buy a coffee, let's say, and then you walk into another store to buy a coffee, you can tell, you could compare the 2 stores and you can tell, okay, I want to go back to that one because they care. There are things that they did, that there are ways they set up their cafe, you know, just from the fit out to the service to the taste of the coffee. And that's what brings people back. And then you expect that. And then if that changes and you think, oh, they don't care anymore, you know, something's changed. And so like mindset and psychology in all of that's really important. And I think like our designer, shout out to Derek, like, you know, he's just, and then our front end devs that he works closely with, like they're just gurus at it. Our founder, he was in the lead machine learning engineering team at Apple before he founded Gamma. And
oh wow,
yeah, he took a lot of that. You know, he made a really interesting comment to me, you know, ages back. He said Apple products, and I just didn't even think about it. He said Apple products are so intuitive and the UI is so good that you don't need an instruction manual. So you either don't receive one with your Apple product, or it's a really small instruction manual. And so that focus on UI, because a really good UI creates a good UX. And so, you know, you take it for granted with Apple products. They're so clean. You know what to do. You can hand an iPhone to your grandma and she can sort of get her iPhone set up. And then you come to expect that. And so it's going to, you know, I've gone on a bit of a tangent, but circling back to anything that we do with our Prince product or more products that we push moving forward will be the same thing. You have to, companies, you know, you stick to that ethos and you stick to that like quality, and you don't rush that. And I think that, you know, that sort of speaks volumes when the users come and experience it. I hope that made sense. I do like to sort of like provide those explanations.
No, I mean, it makes all sense to me.
Yeah.
Now it makes more sense of why you guys waited for secondary, you know, because you're trying to create something more than a flipping environment, and that is special. That's needed for artists, you know. Big 10,000 collections, okay, maybe, you know. But I also think that we're so early in the ordinals and digital artifact collection period that later, 10 years down the line, when it's more common, these slower seasons won't seem as bad, you know, because we're so early in like the NFT's been around for what, like 3-4 years really to the public.
Yeah.
3, you know,
in terms of building,
yeah, in terms of like mass adoption, and that's not really mass adopted. But if you look at like collectibles in the real world, like I'm sure when sports cards first came out in like, you know, the 50s, people were having a hard time flipping those during the hard economic times. But now, you you know, there's so much business and such a big hobby community of collectibles with sports cards, Pokemon cards, all these things that they can still flip those or trade them even in slow times. We're just not there yet with digital artifacts, but we will be in like 10. And I think it's important what you guys are doing for the artists, because to them, for them, they need it to collectors to want to hold it. It's making me want to hold it too, like Shizzy said. You know, like I don't want to sell mine right away, even though secondary market's coming on. Plus, we got first editions of the very first prints.
I know, right? Like I'm
deal.
the same. I went on a collecting spree too, because I just the same as you guys. Like it was just such a special experience. It was so, you know, the immersive experience. Like it felt like you were sort of in a gallery almost buying this art. And I agree, it's going to be so hard to part ways. Obviously, everyone has their number, but it's going to, and I think that's the beauty of it. And I'm glad to hear you say it, because that was a very, you know, it's like a big focus point for us.
Yeah.
And obviously, like creators are the backbone of the space. You know, like no creators in the space, doesn't matter if it's on Bitcoin or wherever.
Yep.
And so honoring that and really providing that. I platform, even though we're a platform, but providing that is so important. And I think helps to motivate and drive them, and also, you know, attract more artists from other ecosystems, and then potentially not even in digital art yet to the space as well, because I think, you know, they're going to see that and speak to their friends, and, you know, that I think that's super cool.
Yep. And then we don't know. This is like a new like transition into a new way of doing art, so we don't know who there could be a new cost, you know, that comes out of this, or a new Banksy or whoever. You know what I mean. And like we'll have one of those first edition prints, and like we hold on to it, want to pass it down to our children or like our children's children or whatever, and it's immutable on Bitcoin
and
forever.
That's the thing too. Exactly.
Cool
exactly your point. Like
yeah,
and like we're not worried about like the AWS shutting anything down. You know what I mean? There's no Amazon Web Service holding our prints. You know what I mean? These are on Bitcoin, on the immutable chain, and these will be here forever. We're not worried about Amazon Web Service chains like Ethereum and them. So just saying.
I know. It's like, you know, like we share in each other's excitement about that, and it just, that's what excites me so much about it. You know, whether it's art or just the ability to store something on chain on Bitcoin is just, you know, it's brilliant. You know, I think obviously like art, that's perfect, but, you know, people who might be just, obviously, like there are things that you don't put on chain, like there are things that do need privacy, like your health data and whatever, but like you know, people can write like a memoir, put it on Bitcoin. You know, people can write like a letter to their great grandkids that they're never going to meet. It's going to be on Bitcoin, and then, you know, they'll be able to read it. You know, you're not sort of like these to be able to sort of like document on the time chain, like it's just it's so inspiring.
Well,
like I
think it's super important too, because like you can put history on the chain to where no government entity can manipulate anything in the future as well. I don't want to go down this like conspiracy theory, because I can definitely do that. But you get what I'm saying. And so I think it's like it's so important that it's there, and we're utilizing it, and we're learning to utilize it, and we're here at ground zero, baby. You know, like on the floor. So I love it.
It's kind of something that you just said kind of remind me of something that I thought about doing. I thought about like my kids are young, so I was thought about writing them a letter, right, and scribing it in the Bitcoin, just not putting no name on it, just, you know, a whole bunch of really nice things to say about them and memories and stuff like that, and then just giving them the inscription number one day. Like that's it. It's awesome. The Bitcoin inscription number, nothing else. And they go and they pop up, you know, on one of the sites where they can read the inscription, and boom, my letter is there forever. Any computer they use, anything. So that's something that I love about Bitcoin and the space in general, and something you guys potentially doing for these artists, you know, that they can give, you know, show their great grandkids, hey, this is our family's art. This is why you're like this, because your great grandfather, he did all this stuff on Bitcoin. And I just think that stuff's so amazing.
Yeah, I completely concur. And I'm thinking about, I've got young kids as well. Yeah, and I think that I do want to do that, and that's the thing. Like when I speak to artists, and I've been having some, you know, meetings with some brilliant artists who haven't come to Bitcoin yet, And once they get their head around the fact that they, like, again, to use the expression that we use at Gamma, preserving their digital legacy on Bitcoin, like they just realize, and then it's like, you don't even need to explain to them. They're like, I'm in, it makes the most sense. They know their art's not going to disappear. And I think there's all of this amazing tech and all of this amazing innovation and recursion and parent-child and all of these things, which I absolutely love as well.
Yeah.
But at its simplest, that is the essentially like the main selling point, that they're like, oh, right. So my art's going to live on, boom, it just clicks.
100%. All right, well, Brett, this was we had an amazing interview with, man. I can't wait to put this out. People are gonna love it. So great. But this is part of the show where we kind of give you the stage to talk to your community, our community, really the whole entire Ordinal space. So yeah, this stage is yours.
Yeah, well, thanks so much, guys. Real pleasure. Thanks for hitting me up. I've had a heap of fun. Again, from my background as a teacher, like, I've always just loved chatting with people and talking and learning and meeting and educating. So, it's really, been a pleasure. Hit me up. I'm at EliHerf1, ELIHERF1, and then my name is there, Brett Herskope, fully doxed on Twitter. Hit me up in a DM, whether you're a collector, a creator, you just want to learn more. That's a big part of my job. Check out us at Gamma, gamma.io, for, premier art platform on Bitcoin, and really establishing ourselves, and got so much more in the pipeline. And, not just for us, it's to support and find amazing artists and collect. And you might, like you said, find the next Banksy, find the next, whoever, find the next Van Gogh. People have described it as like a digital art renaissance, which I love that expression. And, come and, follow us. It's at Try Gamma. Sadly, at Gamma was taken before we became Gamma. So TRY, so Try, and then GAMMA on Twitter. We're here to support. If you're a creator and you want to learn more and you want to get launched on Bitcoin, hit me up. If you're a collector, come and find us. Come and have a look. All you need is, a Bitcoin wallet. So, Xverse, Leather, Unisat. You just need a Bitcoin wallet, a little bit of Bitcoin, and off you go. There's all of this super affordable art, like crazy affordable art. Like Weasley Grizzly, who's the artist at Megapunks at Megapon, he puts his prints out. He just loves getting his art into people's hands. His print, I think he put his prints out for like $1.50, after fees. I think it costs you max about $5. To get an amazing, you could get your first Ordinal for $5, which is just awesome. Quick shout out to my little side project, where the Pandemonium, we built the Audi gallery. So you have free virtual Ordinals gallery, which you can go to and just plug your Taproot address in and have a good navigate around. We're going to be dropping a collection, which will then, which we worked with an artist who, long story, but he's called at the artist BTC on Twitter. He's awesome, really talented guy. Again, part of, a big, came from Stacks and then building out something really cool on Ordinals in his own right. That's going to be awesome because that's going to get you a premium Audi gallery. So, excited for that. Just excited to see where it goes. We've been working with some really cool artists. Got a lot of people applying for like the next round of prints, and we've just got so many more things in store. Some that I've been able to say that I have, and some that I haven't been able to say because, that's just how it works in the space. But it's exciting times, seeing all of our sort of early partners like Xverse and now Leather and Alex and whatnot really kicking goals in the Ordinal space is great. And it's incredible. Like, what is it? It's Australia. I'm in Australia and you're in the States. So I think I'm a day ahead of you. It's the 19th of September here. It's the 18th of September for you. And the first inscription wasn't even made a year ago. So it's just the speed at which this year has happened. Hey, there's your Audi gallery.
I wanted to give you a shout out. Because I just jumped in here real quick and saw this Australian whale here. So it looks like he has that Australian cowboy hat. But yeah, this is cool. Go.
Yeah. Cool. So you can scan around. If you, depending on how many Ordinals you have, you can press R and it will cycle through. You can press T and it takes a screenshot for you, and you can press F for full screen. That's free and that's open to everyone. It's really like I said, that's our basic version, but it's still fun. It's sort of like, we might inscribe the actual the file that built that for our basic, because we might not need to change that. We definitely want to get SVG live in there. But yeah, super cool. Great way to kind of immerse yourself in Bitcoin art. You collect and then you want to be able to hang out in there. So it's like old school, a bit like a Minecraft type experience.
Yeah.
On the homepage, you can also visit a few collection galleries. So we built a collection gallery for Bitcoin frogs, and in the top right, see how you can see explore. So yeah, go to the Bitcoin frog gallery and then walk around, press R and the frames will change. So if you press R on your keyboard, they should load up.
Oh,
there we go.
It is.
So you can go and hang out with all the frogs. We put the node months in there.
That's awesome.
So, just building out fun experiences for people. Yeah. We just wanted to sort of do something for the Ordinals community. We built that ages ago. So yeah, that's super fun. It's just been great. Little things like that, obviously, like my main full-time job is at Gamma, but we've seen so many cool things like that and others being built for, people on Ordinals. And, I think that that's all part of it, so it's been exciting.
Awesome.
I'm proud of that, but thanks for showing that. That was,
I mean, definitely wanted to give it a little showcase right there, because I had my whales in there too. But we'll put all
the bigger
the
your collection gets, the cooler that's going to look. But yeah, come and check us out. We're at the Pandemonium, but the E is a 3 because the Pandemonium with an E was gone. But happy to have more people in our community, and it's a good way to connect with me. But like I said, super open for people to come say hello. And again, just thank you guys. What you guys are doing is really important, because I think what you're doing, and obviously shout out to Prism at Counterfeit Cult, who's a buddy of ours who was from the Stacks days, who's now really getting out on Bitcoin as well.
Prism, gotta get you on, Prism. Gotta get you on, man. God,
Priz would love to jump on, although I don't know if Priz would have to see. I assume that people can come on without their face.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yep.
Respect to people regardless of their decision in that regard.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, what you guys are doing, shout out to you guys, because what you're doing is really important. The people who are helping people to put content out, and content is really king. Again, that tickles me as a teacher, is the more different ways you can bring content to people learn in different ways, whether it be by watching a podcast, listening to a podcast, reading an article, and so yeah, hats off, guys. Keep your hats on, but hats off to you guys for what you're doing. It's super important for the space too. Keep it up.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
It's all fun for us. So we do this for free. We do this in our spare time and all that stuff. But go ahead, Yagobi, I cut you off.
I was just gonna say that, like how Gamma is trying to put that stamp on the brand to be a platform for artists. For us, the stamp is that we give a platform for founders and builders in the space, no matter how small you are or how big you are, right? And that's really where we kind of hang our hat, right? We do a weekly update twice a week, but the community is definitely taking us in. It took a while, but we just started in like May, early May.
Nice work.
Yeah. So, but we're here for it. We're here for all the innovation and stuff. So we appreciate the kind words, and loved today's discussion. It was amazing.
Super fun.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
I see you, Brett. Thanks, buddy.
All right.
Peace. Yeah, so absolutely amazing. Huge fan of Gamma, huge fan of everything that they're doing there, and really appreciate him coming on. And like you said, like we talked before, like Gamma is one of our top 5. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we're the most bullish on, and obviously you can't invest in them at all, but that's why we kind of love things like that, and they're giving opportunity to people who last year at this time didn't have that opportunity. They were messing around on getting wrecked over on other chains. So.
Yeah, well, I think that Prince collection and idea was game changing. That tells me that they have a great team over there. Brett was amazing. That you could tell he's perfect for his role, community growth, right? You could tell.
Yep.
And so I'm super bullish on Gamma, the future of Gamma. I'm checking Gamma now, like, you know what I mean? Like, I would say a couple times a day just to see if there's any new prints in there. I was never checking Gamma before, but it's also about being educated too. And, it took prints for us to get educated on Gamma. And sometimes that just needs to happen, right? Some type of innovation or something from a platform, but super bullish on digital high quality digital art, fine art on Bitcoin. Super bullish on Gamma, and recruiting these artists.
Yeah, 100%. All right, guys, we appreciate you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for hitting us, subscribing. You guys have been subscribing so often, man. It's been so amazing. We jumped up like 10 or 15 today. Absolutely amazing. Appreciate every single like, every single comment, every single view. Every view means so much to us, guys, and we really appreciate that. And yeah, we just appreciate everyone in this space. And just remember, like I always say, always just look around right now, and whether it's Twitter Spaces or just messages and or posts, look who's posting right now, because they're the people that we got to look out for this time next year when all the chaos has erupted again. So should be fun, but just remember who's here now.
Yeah, for sure. And stay tuned for our Twitter accounts. We're going to be hosting some spaces. We're hosting a spaces for tap.exchange on Wednesday, and then we have some big news on Saturday. We're going to reveal soon. But we love the support. Subscribe, keep telling everybody, tell your grandma about us. We don't care. Tell everybody. But we appreciate
Maybe not your grandma.
Well, everybody, because
everyone else.
Grandma will tell everybody, right? So but
keep the boomers out of this. We don't know boomers over here. No, I'm just kidding. We love the boomers. See you guys.
Peace.